Before we dive into the topics for the projects individually, I would like to start a little bit with, we know what DePIN is, I hope, at least most of the audience here, since we're at a DePIN event. DePIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks, and these projects specifically focus on the energy sector within DePIN. So I would like to know a little bit from your points of view, how you see DePIN contribute to the energy transition. Maybe I can start where we left off with David.
Sure. Yeah, so I think actually that DePIN is a really powerful use case. So we've seen with Bitcoin, with Filecoin, with Helium, with Hivemapper, and maybe 2 or 3 dozen other examples, that the DePIN incentive model is really effective at making enormous amounts of infrastructure happen. And so I think that by taking this DePIN incentive model and throwing it at clean energy, you get this like really powerful lever to take a small amount of money and turn it into a large amount of impact. And that's coupled by this huge demand. Worldwide, governments are spending over $1 trillion every year on climate. And so if you can give that $1 trillion a nice big 20x leverage on the impact through DePIN incentives, which I think is about where your leverage ends up, you have a lot of heft. So yeah, I think DePIN is going to be a core part of the energy story of the next 5 years on a global level.
Do you also agree to that, John, or do you have a different take on it?
Actually, I agree 100%. Push it even further. When I think about these things, which I have been for years, the first thing that comes to my mind is the distribution of economic rents, right? So, most traditional large-scale infrastructure businesses, you have to have, hundreds of millions or billions of euros or dollars or whatnot to invest up front to get your networks up and running. And now we have technology that incentivizes individuals on the edge to start contributing their own capital, but they need to be incentivized, right? So we now have this perfect confluence of the software tech and the hardware tech can come together and incentivize individuals to participate.
Yeah.
So.
And do you, Leo, think that that is also the reason that this is happening due to the energy communities that you currently see starting, where peer-to-peer networks form a larger role, energy assets being used in the world are like distributed nowadays with solar panels being on people's rooftops. So is that also one of the reasons why DePIN is such a good fit for the energy sector in your eyes?
Yes, maybe I can give the more, the specific example why the DePIN, has the kind of value, right, to accelerate those, the energy, the transition. Because, the renewable energy, we need more investment, right? So today, the most of the kind of the revenue stream of the solar panel, coming from the selling the electricity back to the grid. And the second, the revenue stream coming from the environment asset, right? The every 1,000 kilowatt hour green energy generated by the solar panel can be issued to the REC, the renewable energy certificate. So it's kind of the valuable, the product as well. But in the past, the most of the the REC, the developer quite focused on the centralized, the large size solar farm, because if you want to develop the REC, you need either send the people to the field to check the size of the panel, or you install the hardware, right, to collect the real-time energy data. So both will cost the money. So they will evaluate the ROI, right? If it's a small asset, they do not have interest in. But today, if we look at the renewable energy, the sector, the more and more the roof will install the solar panel. So we call it a long-tail market. If you aggregate it together, it's a huge asset as well, but it's unaddressable by today's traditional centralized organization. So that's the perfect scenario for the DePIN. DePIN is a community-driven, the bottom-up, co-build and co-own this, the infrastructure network. So the community individual will take care of the CapEx and OpEx. So that's the way to address this long-tail market. So we think that is the very good example, right, for the DePIN model can, the monetizing those, the market, yeah, and bring the more, the revenue stream back to the asset owner, so they can invest more, the solar panel on the roof.
Yes, so actually it's both of them are bottom-up movement, where on the one hand you have the community getting solar panels on the rooftops and wanting to exchange this energy peer-to-peer and generating its own energy, so the prosumer. And on the other hand, you have DePIN, which is also strengthening that narrative also from the bottom up, from what I understand from you, Leo.
Yeah.
And why does tokenization as an incentive offer a benefit here over, for example, fiat money? Like, what would be a reason to utilize a token for that instead of, for example, the US dollar or a stablecoin?
You ask me?
I'm asking in general, so if anyone wants to take
I think
it,
any of us
please.
could jump in on it, but
Yeah.
the technology gives you instant peer-to-peer transactions, right? So there's no person or entity in the middle, right? This is one of the promises that we all believe in the decentralized community.
Yeah.
And frankly, most people would love to contribute back to fighting climate change or contributing towards making the world greener, but it's typically financial incentivization that makes people motivated first, right?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, you can also, everything can be tracked and everything can be transparent, right? So carbon credits, right? You can have actual data supporting them, but all of that information stays on chain and is tied to the financial aspect of it, right? So it's really a nice marriage.
Yeah, good point.
One big advantage I think that tokens have is the amount of ownership that it gives everybody. And so when you have a community of token owners all kind of building towards a common vision, this can go all the way back to Bitcoin. You have people building towards this decentralized money, this future of economies that are not controlled by states. Everybody had a vested interest, and that meant that people could get very passionate about it and get very, you can't invest in something emotionally unless you also have skin in the game. And tokens make a very easy way for people to have skin in the game, and gives them a passion that you don't see in like collectibles, that you don't see in the stock market, that you do see in religions, but that's about it. It's like you have religions and you have tokens, and then everything else, the community is like in order of magnitude less excited. And so I think the token is a great way to give people skin in the game and make them feel really excited about whatever vision and whatever goal that token project is pushing for.
Okay, thank you.
Also, but look at pragmatically, also you can do so many different things with a token than you could do with $1 or €1, right?
Yes.
So it's just a whole nother level of transferability of value and also supporting what you feel passionate about.
Yeah, I agree. For Glow, then I have a question, because I read something about your incentive mechanism, right? It has an amplifying effect there, where $1 worth of investment grows into $20 worth of investment into new renewable energy. Could you explain a little bit more about how you apply this incentive mechanism in Glow?
Yeah, so Glow uses something called a recursive subsidy, and it's actually not so much related to the token. So when you're donating to Glow, that's actually not an investment, it's a donation. So if you want to push climate in the world, you actually donate to make the climate change happen. And what Glow does with that donation is it takes $1, or more realistically like $1,000, and it'll spend that $1,000 building a solar farm. Then that solar farm will produce electricity, which has value, and so the electricity gets sold. Glow gets maybe $950 from that electricity, which it spends on $950 of more solar. And then it makes another solar farm, and it gets more revenue, it makes another solar farm. And so the way that this recursive subsidy works is it takes money and it just puts it through this loop where it just keeps creating things that make more money. And that's how we turn $1 of donations into $20 of brand new solar. And that's kind of like as far as I'm aware, it's novel to Glow, and it's not something I've seen in subsidies before.
Would you say it's also novel in the traditional world, where because there's a Web3 world basically with a lot of different projects nowadays focusing on renewable energy certificates, but also on carbon credits? And would you say this system that you thought of is novel in general in the traditional world and the Web3 world? Or?
I do believe it's novel in general, and it was created precisely because the traditional carbon credit world didn't have an answer. So the problem with renewable energy credits is that you don't know, when you're giving, say $1,000 to a solar farm, you don't know whether that solar farm was built because it's profitable or because the renewable energy credit is giving the solar farm value. And so carbon credit buyers and renewable energy credit buyers kind of has this like doubt and uncertainty. And that brings the value of the renewable energy credits down a lot. And you can see that there are renewable energy credits in America that trade for like 40 cents versus their equivalent in carbon credits through other methodologies unrelated to solar might be as much as like $800 for direct air capture. And so this big gap is mostly explained by uncertainty. And so the recursive subsidy was designed as a way to remove that uncertainty. We know that when on Glow we incentivize a solar farm with money, that solar farm is not motivated by the value of the electricity because the value of the electricity comes right back to Glow. And so the businessman who's building the solar farm is not earning their own electricity revenue. And so that is why Glow carbon credits have much more value than renewable energy credits. Is this recursive subsidy? I think it's a brand new idea.
Yeah, I have not heard of it myself before, but it is interesting because if you look at the other projects, if you look at Riddle, if you look at Arkreen, all three of you are basically in more or less the same field, which is focusing on the prosumers, so the ones that are generating electricity at their homes via solar panels, for example. I would like to go a little bit to Arkreen there, like ask Leo, what is the benefit for the consumer or the prosumer in this case, and what benefit does Arkreen have from it? Because I heard that from Arkreen you generate this data from the solar panels that someone has at his home, for example, and that is being monetized by Arkreen. So how is that data being used, and how is the demand response affected by what Arkreen does, or how do you utilize that?
So today, the first demand side use case Arkreen is try to build is the REC, because we call it's a low-hanging fruit because the methodology is very simple, and it's also very easy to digitalize today's the renewable energy resources, no matter it's the retrofit or using today's existing the solar inverter manufacturer's IoT platform, and so we create the very interesting the demand side application called the Green BTC Club. It's also the DePIN model. It's community driven by the individual to offset the historical the carbon emission caused by the Bitcoin network in the past 15 years. So it's emerging, we call the retail, the buyer market, to consume those, we call the long tail, the small side, the solar, the panels, the green, the asset. And so today, if we look at the REC market, it's mainly driven by the big corporate. So like the Apple, the Microsoft, Google, they buy the things 10 years ago, but we call it a wholesale. They are the wholesale buyer. So they buy a lot. But if you look at today's residential, the solar panel, it's a small size. For example, 10 kilowatt capacity. The annual generation of the rack is around 10 piece. So it's not a matching, right? The supply side is the small side. The today's demand side is the wholesale. So that's the reason why we define this, the Green BTC Club, the application, try to build this retail, the buyer market. So every individual can participate in this, the voluntary carbon neutrality, and also get the motivation, get the token incentive. But every individual can buy, can use, consume the rack, the small size, maybe the one piece per day or the the half rack per day. So it's a matching, right? The supply side is a small size, long tail, and the demand side is also the small size, the long tail. So by this way, we can really the monetizing and scale this the small side, the long tail, the renewable energy resources, the monetization.
And what is the business model in this case for Arkreen? Do you sell the data that is being generated by the prosumers?
Okay, yeah. So we are defined our utility token called AKRE. It's the scenario we will using this utility token. So in the supply side, once the community member onboarding their residential solar panel and the uploading their edge data and to do that we call on-chain issuance, the REC on the Arkreen network. So this on-chain issuance transaction, we will charge some service fee and based on the Arkreen utility token. So more supply side, more on-chain issuance transaction, and more the utility, right? So it's capture the internal the value. The demand side is the same. So when the community do more those voluntary carbon neutrality on the green BTC, more the on-chain offsite transaction, we also define the service fee well based on the Arkreen utility token. So more demand side, we also capture the more external value. So and we define this token incentive model as well. So when the people join at the supply side, and we give the Arkreen utility token as incentive. And when the people doing the demand side to do the green BTC, we also give the Arkreen utility token incentive to do the bootstrap, right? So that's the typical, the DePIN model. But all those, the participant, no matter supply side or demand side, they co-build this, the network. So they hold this, the utility token. So actually, they enjoy this network, the growing. So if you had more on-chain issuance transaction, more on-chain offsite transaction, the network's value is increased. So all of those participants, all those token holder will enjoy. So that is the kind of beauty of the DePIN model. So every the participant can enjoy not just the individual's monetization, they enjoy the whole network, those infrastructure with the network effect, and you enjoy those futures, the value of the network.
All right, thank you. And so because one of the things that we've seen over the last, I don't know, more than 10 years at least, is that crypto has a hard time getting adopted in the real world. DePIN has to me at least, gives the impression that it can overcome that. How do you want to reach the general audience? This is a broader question, but I'll start with you again, Leo. How do you think that Arkreen can overcome this barrier of just targeting the Web3 community versus the rest of the world?
The DePIN is I would say DePIN is a very important, the application of the vertical, not only for the Web3, also for the non-Web3, the traditional world. Because in the past, all those Web3 applications are quite native, right? Crypto native. So for the crypto, non-Web3, the industry or the government, they don't understand what those crypto guys are doing, right? But if since the DePIN, the application, the coming, and we have some scenario, the energy, right? The solar panel, the battery, the charging station, the electric vehicle, the base station. So those are scenarios, the familiar scenario for those, the traditional world, the industry guy, right? For those investor, traditional venture capital, for those government agency, right? Even for those developer, right? They can feel the quite familiar. So that will help them to be more, accept the Web3. So that is very important. We can onboarding more people, more developer, more funding from the old money, and also more supporting from the government in terms of the regulation. So that is the DePIN can contribute for the this ecosystem, and we can also show the which kind of value of the Web3, the token economy, and the blockchain can contribute the real world. So that is very I would say the DePIN is a very strategic important for today's the Web3 society.
All right. What do you think about that, John?
The trick is going to be to get the average person to contribute towards DePINs, and they'll have no idea what a DePIN is, right? Yeah. So it's to make it as simple as possible for people to participate. So though we have a small team and we have a general focus on supplying financial instrumentation for energy communities, we actually have a long tail plan to get as many people involved, right? And this is more on the consumption of energy side, not on the production, right? So, we imagine a world where you will have systems, hardware, and software in place, and there will be potentially artificial intelligence telling you or actually operating on its own, when do you run your dishwasher? You know, can you turn your refrigerator off for 5 hours a day? When is it optimized to charge your electric vehicle? So decisions like this can be made on your behalf, and you'll be participating in a DePIN. And you can get rewards. They may not be called tokens. You may never heard crypto. Nobody knows what Web3 is, but you still participate, right?
Yeah.
So this is what, you know, kind of a long tail that we're excited about, that the protocol that we're launching can support, right?
And do you have a specific strategy in place for that? Because the marketing that I see crypto projects do really usually focus on the marketing for the Web3 world and for investing in a token. So this requires a very different strategy in marketing, right?
Yeah,
do you have
it
an
does,
idea
and
of how you
probably
approach that?
requires a lot of money as well, right?
Yes,
So I think we'll take little jabs here and there, but ultimately we'll need distribution partners to help us with this.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the ideas is, you know, today your utility company that sells you energy, they don't really know much about what happens within your household inside of the smart meter, right? So they interact with the smart meter once a day. They can grab the data off of that. They can add it to a spreadsheet or however they maintain that and send it to you. You know, we were talking earlier that he gets a report back on how much energy he uses per month, right? Which is kind of interesting, but with the technology we can put into your home, we can get it down to every 5 minutes, what energy you're using, what device is using it, and then we can turn around and incentivize you to make changes. And this is all enabled but through a DePIN network, right? Where you have physical hardware in place, and you have a token economy with which you're being incentivized by.
So why wouldn't an energy provider, for example, offer this kind of insights? I mean, it is interesting to the consumer as well to know what devices utilize which amount of energy, right?
Yeah, well, your average, you know, utility company isn't into drop shipping small devices nor teaching you how to install them in your houses, right? It's all set it and forget it. I mean, who here looks at their energy bill all the time? You know, they're not in the business of really marketing products and services that you use every day. So they're just not good at it.
Yeah.
Would be my short answer to it.
Okay, good answer, I believe. Do you think so too, David? Like, is that for you also? I mean, you have a different type of product, but the marketing that you require to get the attention of the general population, does that differ from what John sketched earlier in my previous question, or?
Yeah, I think Glow is actually much more like an industrial-facing project.
Okay.
There's a bunch of solar, and you can make a ton of money if you put solar down. And because you can make a ton of money, like there are a bunch of professionals, some in this room, who have basically made a career out of putting solar down and taking rewards from the Glow protocol. And then it's a marketplace, so you have people who produce carbon credits, and then you have people who buy carbon credits. And I think also on the buy side, the majority of interest in purchasing carbon credits, both in the voluntary world and in the like regulated world, are corporations and governments. And so I think Glow ends up in this like very different fold than most crypto projects, where it's not chasing consumer eyes. It's actually going to like Starbucks and Stripe and Shopify and Toyota and being like, we can help you build a climate story that we know is important to your corporate strategy. We can do it cheaper and better and like more satisfying to, you know, your end viewer than any of these competitive offers can. And so yeah, Glow I guess is in a very different layer than I think most of the crypto space.
All right, understood. And John, for you, but also for the rest, I'm interested to hear, like, DePIN is a very novel kind of solution, right? Blockchain is a very novel solution in itself, and DePIN is a very novel concept. So do you think that limits your chances of adoption? Do you think people are wary of utilizing this technology or jumping to a different type of solution in this case? I mean, for consumers, it might be different because there's less risk involved, but I can understand if it's industry that you target, it might be a different case, right, with regulation. So do you think the novelty of the concept is limiting the adoption?
Yeah, I will continually reinforce that most people don't care about the technology, right? Can they make a little bit of money? Are they doing the world a little bit better, right? And most of us have no idea how, you know, our cars are built or what's inside of the phones we use. Like, most people just don't care about that at all. So you know, for 8 years now, I've been talking about blockchain. Most people don't care about blockchain. nor do they care to hear about it, right?
Yeah.
But what is the value and the benefits to them? So I think if you're in this space, you focus more on the value
Yep.
and ultimately the benefits, not about how blockchain works and trustless systems, and even get into the details of how crypto token economic models are run. Like, just most people just don't care.
Yeah. You're all three in very different target regions, from what I understood. Do you see or feel the same way, Leo? Is that different in Asia, or is it similar? Doesn't it matter geographically?
Yeah, I think the similar. Yeah, similar.
Okay.
Either you create the value, right? They like this product, or you create the kind of incentive, right? Get them to earn more money, or have the more motivation. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you are targeting the individual, so it's a totally different, the pitch, the enterprise. So for the individual, how to make the entry level, it's low, right?
Yeah.
So the product should be easy, right? If we're looking at the DePIN, the project. So if the product can be, the hardware, it's the price is not so high, and it's easy to be, the install, easy to be, the DIY, the place in the field, and it's easy to be used, right? You will have the more, the onboarding customer. Yeah.
All right. And is that, because that brings me to another point as well, the token ecosystem that you utilize to incentivize people. I mean, we just talked about, whether or not it's a risk that it's such a novel technology to be utilized, and all of you basically seem to confirm that that is not the issue, because the technology is not what matters to most people. But in the end, there is also an incentive mechanism behind it, right? And this incentive mechanism needs some sort of sustainability in the long term as well. So how do you plan to realize that in your project's cases? I'll start with John. Have you thought about that? Like, how can you incentivize and make sure that the ecosystem is sustainable in the long run, with not just token inflation?
Yeah, so one aspect of the Riddle protocol is it very heavily is weighted toward community involvement. So 61% of the tokens minted and mined over time go to the community. So, we felt that was super important. So over a multi-year, long-term project like this, to continually reinforce and incentivize people to contribute towards the protocol in the community. So I think that's one aspect that that we can promote.
And do you believe that is, I mean, it's an inflationary mechanism. Do you think that is sustainable because of the network growth, or is there other reasons why you believe it's sustainable?
I think it's sustainable because I think over the next 20, 30-year time horizon, all energy production is going to go to the edge, right? It won't be centralized anymore, fossil fuel burning furnaces and whatnot.
Yep.
There's going to be all kinds of unique ways energy are created that we can't even think of today. I always think of somebody inventing maybe some kind of turbine within every toilet, right? So a little bit of energy is created every time you flush.
Yeah.
Now this might be a strange incentive, but just think of all the ways you can create energy in little bits and pieces that's like purely on the edge, right?
Yeah.
And that's completely decentralized. So I believe that's going to happen more and more, which will continually add value to the protocol, at least that we're running on, right?
Yeah. And for Glow, is that what kind of mechanism do you have in place for this? Is that different, or I mean, you're quite new from what I understood in what you're working on.
Glow is new. I've been in the space for 13 years. But in terms of incentives, I think if people see value, they'll jump through hoops to collect that value. And so on the supply side, it's actually very easy, because there's just a giant pile of money. It's like, these are rules to collect the money. And you really can have any arbitrary complexity about the rules to collect money, because as long as there's enough money, someone's going to go and try and earn that money. And so I think the incentives, you don't actually have to worry about UX too much on like the supply side, just because people will build their own UX if your UX sucks, because they want to make money. And then on the demand side, the incentives, I guess it's not so much incentives, and it's more making sure that you understand, like, when, one of the biggest buyers of climate assets in the world is Shell. And so you have to understand when Shell buys climate assets, what is their corporate strategy? They're like a psychopathic corporation that only cares about profit, right? There's no delusions about that. And so you have to understand when Shell buys climate assets, what are their goals? And so if you want that money to come into your ecosystem and help fund, the transition to clean energy, you have to understand why Shell thinks it's valuable for them to pay money for that. And so I think on that side, there's a big product angle that becomes super important. And that's something that we're very focused on in Glow, is making sure that climate asset buyers find Glow to be more compelling than all the alternatives.
Okay. Yeah.
I've been, just as an aside, I've just been learning about what he and the team have been up to over the last, 48, 72 hours. And it's a totally different angle than we're taking, right?
Yes.
And I think it's super fucking cool what they're building. Like, total verifiable renewable energy credits. Like, you can't cheat. You can prove all the data. You can prove the energy's been created. So I think this is a great project that's being launched into the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree. It also brings me to the question, it's a question that I looked into when I was setting up the panel, right? I had to look into what Glow is doing. I already knew what Arkreen was doing and what Riddl is doing, but I did have to look into that, and I was like, ooh, how am I going to explain to the public, to the audience, what the differences are between these different projects? I mean, how many of you know now what the difference is between these three? Good.
The Glow team.
I see some hands. I see
right.
some hands. That's good. So I mean, we're quite far in the panel. I'd say we had some extra time, luckily, because we could start earlier. But could you maybe briefly address, from your perspectives, what the differences are, and what, as a consumer or prosumer, if you have solar panels on your roof, you can do with whatever you guys are building? Like, is that something you can explain?
I'll just jump in real quick. I think there's a lot of differentiation between what Glow and Riddl are doing, and a lot less between what Arkreen and Riddl are doing, right? Like,
okay.
These two protocols are definitely kind of going after energy communities in slightly different ways.
Yeah.
But there are ways that we potentially could collaborate. Whereas, my quick take is we could easily collaborate with Glow. Maybe our technology could enhance what they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't see a lot of crossover in what we do, but a lot here, actually.
Yeah. Leo, what is your thoughts? Like, what do you see as the core difference from Riddl or from Glow, or what makes what makes you usable to the general audience here?
Yeah, we are sometimes we position the Arkreen as the individual, the climate action platform. So we try to give the every people, the every individual climate, the actor, this platform and a tool. They can do either the supply side, onboarding their green behavior, the rooftop solar panel, driving the electric vehicle, building the charging station. Those people-centric, but the green behavior can be digitalized, can be structured, and can be issued the green asset on the blockchain supply side. Demand side is the same. We see the more and more, the people try to do some donation, right? To do some, contribution for the climate change. It's a voluntary climate, the carbon neutrality application. But today's carbon market is for the corporate, for the giant, for those wholesale buyer, not for the individual. So that's another, the unique value the blockchain can bring as the platform, because you can fractionize to the very tiny the asset. So that is the Arkreen's position. We are providing this decentralized climate action platform for the people, for every, the individual. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, understood. And for Glow, I mean, we talked about, we did the introductions, but just a quick summary of what makes you unique, and how can the general audience use your solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just very focused on being as almost as capitalist as possible. We're like the most capitalist climate project on the planet. And in terms of like the audience, what you can do to help is you can donate, and that donation is going to go through this like 20x magnifier. You can get more solar down into the world, or you can get involved and talk to your boss, your colleagues, your company. And I think really, like, when it comes to who has budgets for climate, like people care a lot about just the appearances that companies are doing their part, and I think everyone needs to be doing their part. And companies generally have much bigger budgets than individuals, and so what's $5 a month to you is probably $20 a month to your boss times every single employee. And so if you just have a conversation that's like, I as a worker and my colleagues, we care about our company's climate image. I think that actually could have a huge difference. And a fun fact, the main reason, as far as I understand it, that Microsoft has one of the best climate programs in the world is they found that by being really intentional with the climate, it improved employee retention. And that created a lot of value for the company that basically justified the entire cost. And they're like, oh, employees stick around when we're responsible. We're going to spin up our responsible arm because employees sticking around is very valuable to the company. So yeah, I would say probably the best way to get involved is just like talk to the corporate entities in your life who care about you, which is probably someone who employs you or someone that you're a regular customer of a business, and get them to see the value in branding themselves as a climate company, and they can do that through Kwil.
All right, thank you. I had a concluding question that I was going to ask you, which was about the energy transition, where I was going to ask you, like, how is DePIN essential to the energy transition? But I think we already more or less answered that in the beginning. So what I would like to ask you is, if you have any call to action to the public here, to the audience, is there, like I said, can they do something to support whatever you guys are doing?
Join our Discord.
Join our Discord.
Leo?
Yeah, we are for the individuals, so let's co-build this people's climate action platform or network together. Yeah, it's a co-build and co-own. Yeah, that's the beauty of the DePIN model. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious. You can obviously, some way, shape, or form, participate in any of the protocols or endeavors that we're after, right? You can directly do it. So get involved, but you have an opportunity also. Like, we're pragmatists as well and capitalists, right?
I
So
mean,
financial incentivization is a part of everything that we're working on, right?
Yes.
You might even say that's the lead.
And in the end, all of you have a DePIN project, right? So
Correct.
DePIN, in its core, is something where people can contribute to.
Yes.
So that means that everyone can contribute to whatever you guys are doing in some form or another. And it also means, like what I learned from my 8 years in crypto now, I think, is that the earlier you are with a project, the better the rewards.
Correct.
So, I mean, we've got some novel projects here that are, like, they've been building for some time. I know Leo has, for example, and I know Riddl has as well. And Glow, you've been in the space for a long time, but Glow is relatively new.
6 months.
Exactly.
Very
So
fresh.
there's some big opportunities here to participate, guys and women. So yes, please do, and please support them.
Great.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. Let's have a round of applause for the panel.